Well, that's striped colour. That's Kuwait Tower. He, in theory, couldn't beat the fort. We couldn't beat the fort last year, and he's the same horse as Muscatite, so you wouldn't think, again, he was quite good enough, but he looked very green last year. He hasn't run this season. The stable's in former John Sutcliffe. He promised a lot, didn't quite live. He used to hang badly in the races. If he's really grown into himself, he could be a possible outsider. Very promising, but he had 3 runs, and he was well beaten by the fort, and the fort was nowhere near as good as Darcy's, they didn't think, so one wouldn't have thought he was quite fast enough. And Lofty, the same thing applies to Lofty. He's some way behind Proclaim. Proclaim is only run this year, and you can't really. He was strong and consistent. He won 2 of his 7 races last season, but you can't beat Proclaim, and he wouldn't, on all the evidence so far, suggest he's good enough to win this. Lofty, ridden by Trevor Rogers, and coming out of stall 9. It's Muscatite. Spanish Place is the white hat in the middle of those two. Spanish Place. Well, you see him. He's ridden by Yves Saint-Martin. Steve Cawthon, the stable jockey, rides Wassel. There's a statement in that in itself, and he's the same horse roughly as Muscatite and Guns of Navarone, and we tend to think that none of those are quite good enough, though Muscatite is one of those 3 that I thought might improve the most. Spanish Place, ridden by Yves Saint-Martin and drawn 4. Walking through us, Ravinsky, that's about 5 million to 1, and really it has to be. He's had just 2 runs and been well unplaced each of them. Good luck to him, but he won't win this. Ridden by Billy Nunes, drawn 11. Lofty walking through in Spanish Place, just on his toes, Spanish Place. Garitas out the back there. There's Caches Musen. I'd quite like to see All Systems Go, number 2. There he is, right in the middle of the picture. All Systems Go, who won 4 of his 6 races last year, but he was, as you saw him beaten by, well beaten by Wassel in the Greenham. He worked very well with Tolomeo and Muscatite last Saturday. Tolomeo is supposed to work the best of all in that gallop, but good, strong, tough horse. I wouldn't have thought he's quite good enough. Behind Garitas also last year. What bidding?
And Garitas goes back to 7-2 favourite from 3-1. Diocese at 4s. Wassel 5-1. Lomond at 10s. Muscatite 14s. Drumalis and Alverton both at 16-1. Tolomeo 18-1 and 20s bar.
All Systems Go, Ravinsky, that's Spanish Place. There, now that's Drumalis. That's a very interesting one and a very possible outsider. He won a race last year, was second in two decent races, and this year he was beaten by Proclaim first time, but he was only beaten a length. He might not have been fully wound up that day. He then won the Irish 2000, the Italian 2000, ridden by Pat Edery, and Pat was very impressed by him, I can tell you. And this is a very definite possible. You want an outsider, I wouldn't put you at all away from Drumalis, from Ian Balding's stable. He'd be very fit. He's a likeable, handsome horse, ridden by Bruce Raymond and drawn 12. There's Guns of Navarone. Well, I mentioned him briefly before. He's very fit. He's had 2 races, and he ran 3rd behind Muscatite and Spanish Place. Ridden by Philip Robinson. He's coming out of stall 5. There's Proclaim. Well, we've seen him several times. He can't beat Wassel and he can't beat Garitas on the book, but he's good, tough and consistent and fit. 18 is Tecorno. He's the stable companion to Dick Hearn's Garitas, comes from the same stable, and he hasn't run since last September. He's beaten by Noble Decree. He also ran well before then, talking to his owner beforehand, just hoping he'd run well enough for a place. Nice to take part in the field, but most unlikely to be able to beat Garitas. And that's an interesting one. Tolomeo, he was 4th behind Muscatite in the race you saw. He can't beat him in theory. He worked very well last week, ridden by Gianfranco Dettori, who's won 2 2,000 guineas. He won on both Volkonski in 75 and Wallow in 76. Tolomeo, promising sort. You couldn't ignore him, though he is held on the book. There you are, to corner going through. All Systems Go. Well, I have John Oaksey with me. John saw the horses in the paddock, seen them going down. Reflection, John, first of all about Diocese.
Well, as I think you said, Bruff, he looks extremely fit, but he's a light-framed horse who always would look fit. And I don't think that's really got any bearing on the fact that he has had this whole string of setbacks. I don't think that this latest setback will necessarily do him any damage. He's perfectly sound now, but the trouble is that he did strain a muscle about a month ago, and that interrupted his preparation.
Thoughts on the well-being of the others you saw in the paddock?
I thought Goritis looks magnificent. Mind you, so he did before that awful race in the Dewhurst. Muscatite looks noticeably fitter than he was before. I quite agree with you about DRUMALIS. He's a very muscular, tough horse. He went to Italy and beat the best they have easily. I think he's a real good outsider. If I was going to give a tip, though, I think it would be Goritis. I believe that he looks to me as if he's back to his best, and his best ought to be good enough.
Well, it's just the danger that perhaps there might be some mental problem affecting him. We don't know. This 2.5 minutes, 2 minutes is going to solve it here. Russell John, how do you think he looked?
He's a lovely mill reef. He's the best sort of mill reef. Well, not as big as Glint of Gold. In fact, he's the best sort of small mill reef, I would say. The only question is whether he's good enough. As, again, you said, he did take quite a long time to beat Proclaim, but that was only the second race of his life.
So, just a couple more to go in. The 2,000 guineas. Here's Rawley.
Thank you, Bruff. Yes, that's the last in. Just waiting for the orders. Started Vic Smalley. All in, he says. There they go for the 1983 2,000 guineas, and Tocorno breaks out quickly. Kuwait Tower, on the other hand, and Tolomeo are both slow. And it's Tocorno making the early running, followed by Lofty. On the near side with the yellow cap, that's Proclaim. Then after these, Goritis is going stronger. Then Alverton for France. Just after the leaders, in the centre comes DRUMALIS. And still towards the rear of the field, our Spanish place, one of the outsiders. And last of all, at the end of the second furlong, is Tolomeo now. They're inside the final 3/4 of a mile. And up front, it's still Tocorno and Lofty, followed by, in third place, Proclaim, making their way now to the end of the third furlong. So with just under 5 to go, it's over to Graham Good in the grandstand.
And Goritis is going well. Willie Cast in the mid-division, Leicester towards the rear at this stage. Fourth from the right of the picture, now third from the right. That's Diasis. But they come down towards the halfway stage. The leader is Tocorno, joined by Lofty, with Ravinsky on the outside. Goritis just in behind these. Then Muscatite going well. Guns of Navarone. All systems go in a challenging position. Lofty as well there. Diasis, that's number 4. Leicester now switched to the outside. And as we change camera angles, that's towards the third from the right of the picture. Kuwait Tower is going well. They're past the bushes, 2.5 furlongs to go. Lofty has the advantage from Tocorno, with Goritis throwing down a determined challenge. Dias is coming with a run. Muscatite on the left. Lomond now switched with Pellettery, but it's Goritis in the lead. Goritis the leader from Lofty in second place. Kuwait Tower. Dias is beaten. Muscatite is staying on. Lomond finishing very well indeed on the very wide outside, coming inside the final furlong, and Lomond has the advantage of Muscatite. Lomond, Muscatite, Goritis, with Tolomeo right at the finish, but it's Lomond in the lead from Tolomeo coming up towards the line. Lomond, Pellettery looking round. Lomond the winner. Tolomeo second. Muscatite third. A photo for 4 between Goritis and Kuwait Tower, then Lofty, and behind these came Diasis, the Guns of Navarone, all systems go, Tocorno, and last of all, and last by a long way, was Proclaim. And so the result of this, the 2,000 guineas, is a win for number 11, Lomond, owned by Mr. Robert Sangster, trained in Ireland by Vincent O'Brien, ridden by Pat Heddery, his first triumph in a 2,000 guineas, bred by Warner L. Jones and Will S. Farish III in America. Second was number 19, Tolomeo, ridden by Juanfranco de Torre. And third was number 13, Muscatite, ridden by Brian Taylor. No doubt about it, Diasis flopped. Goritis had every chance. He couldn't deliver the goods. Let's review the final 2.5 furlongs with Bruff.
Yes, they went a real good gallop all the way, so there was always likely to be something to come bursting in from behind. You see Lomond is just behind Goritis there, who ran a very honourable race. He was really fighting all the way. Lofty ran very well on the outside for a long time. Dias is on the right. Lester Piggott dropped him out early.